What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Well, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Day by NBC.
Jack Marius Tack-Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Dave Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangled from Fort Lauderdale.
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the CS hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, Macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you are watching us on Iconic, Rockfin, or YouTube, or you're listening wherever podcasts are served, thank you so much. We appreciate your support. We know you have a ton of options out there. You know what? We just updated the website, the octopusofglobalcontrol.com, and there's links in there to the merch store. All kinds of crazy things in there. You will definitely trigger somebody at work if you buy some of the shirts or get the stickers that we're selling. I've got a Operation Paperclip shirt on. I've got a Operation Mockingbird pillow because why not? You know, all kinds of things in there. I would encourage you to go and take a look and see if you find anything that you might like. Baseball tees, really comfortable t-shirts. The quality is outstanding. If you don't like it, if you have a problem with it, just send it back. They'll make it right for you. So definitely take just a minute or two to check it out. And we couldn't do the show without the amazing support of our sponsors. C60 Purple Power has been, the most amazing medical supplement that I have ever taken. Ken Schwartz, the founder and chief science officer, has been on the show. He was a nuclear physicist who took this stuff, the C60 formula, to help him while he was working with nuclear materials to improve his cells. And while he was doing that, it cured his macular degeneration. So he thought, damn, there's something to it. So he left, started his own company, and started to develop this product. C60 is a naturally occurring molecule comprised of 60 carbon atoms forming something that looks kind of like a hollow soccer ball. It's the only molecule of a single element that forms a spherical cage. This unique structure makes C60 a free radical sponge with the ability to neutralize free radicals and reset itself again and again. It is the most powerful antioxidant known. It is several hundredfold higher than the conventional antioxidants. And not only can C60 help maximize the efficiency of the cells in producing energy, but it may also provide cellular protection against many toxic environmental factors. I've been taking it now for a month. I feel great. My poor sick cat, who was on death's door, I started giving it to her. She has turned around. I am stunned. I am thankful that I met Ken Schwartz. He has made this. His product has helped to save my cat, my 17-year-old cat, who I love dearly. So I will always be taking this product. I will always be thanking Ken for that, and I encourage you to do it too. Go to c60purplepower.com. Use the promo code MACRO and save yourself a little bit of money in the process. Well, I'll tell you, we got two of my favorites on. Darren and Graham from Grimerica up in the Great White North. And if you are unfamiliar with their show, how dare you? You better get on it, because not only do they have Grimerica, but they have Grimerica Outlaw as well. So what's going on, guys? How are you?
Hey, doing pretty good. Thanks, Charlie, for having us on.
Yeah, man. Well, you're a staple member of Union of the Unwanted. It's always great to have you guys there. And I've been on Outlaw before, but why don't you explain to people, first of all, what it is, and then why you had to go down this route? You take it. No, you take it.
Well, I guess we didn't have to. We just started getting YouTube strikes. We're still getting YouTube strikes. You get more strikes than you think, because they gave us some warnings too. They keep throwing in a warning here and there. Mm-hmm. But we spent 8 years building the brand, the community, for lack of a better term. And we had 10,000 YouTube subs or something like that. And it started to be, we had started, because traditionally we didn't really start pushing back on
heavy conspiracy.
Heavy. We've been pushing back on vaccines for years.
Yep.
But we didn't really, it wasn't until we started really getting into the COVID, and we kind of got sucked into that, where we were doing it every show or every other show, COVID. And those were the ones that were causing problems.
Right.
So we kind of, and we were arguing internally about how much COVID to do, because I don't really care about it, and I think it should be ignored to a certain extent, and Graham feels like we should push back, and I can kind of see that side of it too. So we were kind of figuring out what to do, and we decided that we would do Outlawed. Originally we were going to do it as just an additional show. It'd just be another show. We'd do it once in a while, and it'd just be another feed to throw some stuff in if they were too iffy, or if it was going to get our other feed in trouble. Wasn't really worth it. Wasn't worth compromising the 500 or 600, 500 shows we got there for COVID. That's, COVID's not worth it.
Yeah.
And so we started Outlawed, and then after I think a week or two, it became apparent it was going to cost more money, and we wanted to self-host all that from the get-go.
And that was our plan from the beginning, which I was just going to say, is Darren was thinking we got to self-host these feeds anyway. And that kind of kickstarted us into pushing that forward. Like, get off these servers, get on our own servers, self-host the RSS so that we can just add that extra layer of protection, because the podcasting loophole is a loophole, and they're going to come for us, but they're not going to be able to if everybody uses this sort of RSS. So that kind of spurred Darren to all this work into setting up Outlawed and our chats from our own servers. And then we decided to use Outlawed as a premium feed, sort of like the THC model kind of thing, where we're just like, we're going to go longer shows and split them in half, and we can get our COVID rants out there and push back more like you're doing against the global establishment, or whatever kind of control mechanisms that we see needs to be pushed back. And right now it's kind of like vaccines and big pharma and this takeover. So it gives us that avenue for pushing back in that way. And then it also kind of keeps the Grimerica feed a little bit lighter. Maybe we can still talk about consciousness and UFOs and psychedelics and some it still branches.
So many people,
there's still overlaps, but
there's so many people to interview, and honestly, it just gives us an opportunity to double that.
Yeah. And I just had Dennis McKenna on last week. So, I love a good psychedelic talk with that guy. That dude is, I wouldn't even begin. That guy's has more mushrooms than Whole Foods. You know what I mean?
It's our 5th episode. Episode 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a trip. I had so many quotes in my octopus book from his brother Terrence, and I'd read them out to him, and he was laughing at him, man, because Terrence was like a quote machine. He said the most outrageous shit and the craziest in his his high pitched kind of stoner voice, and he would do it, and it just made everything twice as funny. So I was cracking Dennis up with all these things. But hey, I'm wondering, I think there's probably a lot of us out there that are thinking about, like, how do we get around this censorship? And I know we've talked about this on the Union of the Unwanted with Ernie Hancock and you guys. And what's the technical explain? Give me a little bit more detail about the technical side of how you did that with setting up. That in a way so that you felt like it would be less easy to be manipulated. How are you doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
Well, so where to begin? I guess we've always, about a year ago, because we were on DreamHost, I want to say, like 2 years ago. We were still using DreamHost for the website and Libsyn for the podcast. And I can't disparage Libsyn because honestly, we've had no problems with them so far. I have nothing negative to say at Libsyn. I've talked to honestly, I just talked to Rob Walsh the other day because of a quota problem for upload and stuff with another show that a friend of ours runs through us, 13 Questions. And they had to redo a bunch of files, and I was trying to charge them like $350 or something like that because all the new files had been twice as big. Mm-hmm. So anyway, a quick email and Rob just makes it go away. And I've emailed him in the past just because I'm like, what's this cancel culture? What do I need to worry about? And I've gone through their terms of service, and it's pretty clear that they're basically, as long as you're not advocating violence or telling people to go out and shoot people or this or that, we're not going to have any problems. As soon as you get into that, you could have some problems. But my personal opinion is that Libsyn's positioning itself to be sold.
And Libsyn is short for Liberated Syndication, and it's the podcasting hosting service. So we put all our podcasts through there. They then transmit it everywhere that podcasting goes, including YouTube as audio and all kind. Like that basically is just the one tool we have that we put all our podcasts in there, and we've been happy with it for 8 years so far.
Cool.
Yeah, we still use it. So we still use it on the main feed right now because there's tens of thousands of people subscribed to it already. So I can't just shut it off.
Right.
But we've now built a clone feed that's on our own service. So we left DreamHost because DreamHost had actually started at that time. We weren't doing any COVID stuff. We were kind of doing some vaccine stuff, and that was getting some pushback. And we had a local listener named George that reached out, and we were listening to No Agenda, and he listens to both shows, and he was like, we could get you on those servers. So shout out to George, helped a ton along the way. But basically we went from DreamHost and started shutting down a couple of sites, nothing near us, or we didn't get warnings or anything, but it was enough that I was like, okay, this is not good. I'm a panicker, especially because it gets to the point where we've been lucky enough to generate a little bit of income off our show. And as that goes, it's like, we can't have that disappear.
Right.
That
can't get shut off tomorrow because of something we said.
No, because you end up accumulating a whole bunch of bills. It costs a lot to do what we're doing now. And then luckily we have the listenership to pay for it. But if that went away, then all of a sudden, thousands of dollars a month in bills going to come pretty quick.
Yeah.
So what made you think Libsyn was going to get sold then? Because that's the big risk, right?
Well, they haven't.
Companies have so much money, they can just fucking go buy out everybody, and then
I've heard that rumor from a couple people that are sort of close to it, and I have the feeling that Libsyn, they haven't updated their back end in so long.
It is their last loophole too. It really is one of the last loopholes.
I feel like Spotify and Libsyn are pretty in bed with each other already. And I think Spotify would eventually buy Libsyn, is my prediction. And then everything will change and the terms of service will quickly change. So when we were starting up the new feed, I was like, well, we just got to self-host it out the gate like the No Agenda guys do. We're just going to put it on our own server. And we still, that being said, I'm still running Libsyn for the free show.
Mm-hmm. Because you have to until we get everybody sort of on the old.
Yeah,
you're running parallel feeds now.
I'm running parallel feeds and doing everything sort of switching over. So, but now that we were running a premium show, the main reason was because when we were going to start doing the premium show, it can't shut off. Because if I've got people paying me money every month, the show has to be there. Yep. They can't go and open their phone one day and the show's gone. because I'm going to get 1,000 emails, or not right now 1,000 emails, but hopefully one day 1,000 emails saying, where's my fucking podcast? I pay you. I'm going to kill you. I mean, I heard.
But that's advocating violence, so they would get deplatformed.
9 years ago, I heard from, Benjamin Grundy, who's one of the reasons we're podcasting. He had started Mysterious Universe and started Plus a couple years before it even started as we know it, and had to shut it down because something happened in his personal life and he went 6 weeks without releasing a show and he started getting death threats because, he's got a couple hundred people paying him a few bucks a month and they don't think about that, maybe something happened. They're just like, hey, I'm paying money. You're not answering my emails. What's going on? Right. So anyway, to protect that, we decided we'd just self-host that from the get-go, which would also give us because we already have these servers. We moved the website onto its own servers probably like a year and a half ago, just to be safe. Mm-hmm. And because we have a bunch of them. I mean, we've got Grimerica, and we had we had another podcast, the 13 Questions one, and we it got to the point that we had like 5 or 6 websites running. Mm-hmm. And instead of paying for them all monthly, it made more sense to just grab this server. So then we researched server companies, and you find a server company that's, got a good reputation for not shutting shit off without a court order. And the other thing is it shouldn't be in the United States because of the Patriot Act, which kind of opens everything wide open. They can come in and get it. So we moved the websites over, and then when we started a new podcast, that's when I had to learn how to do the RSS feed and everything like that, because we decided we were just going to do the premium feed on our own from scratch off the server. At the same time, we were going to move our chat space because of a bunch of people's chat rooms were getting nuked on Discord. Yep. And that's where we were. So we were going to move that over to our own server. And we're telling everyone how terrible Twitter is and how terrible Facebook is, but we weren't really giving them a place to go. So we started the Mastodon instance on our own server as well, the grimerica.ca/social, which everyone's welcome to join. You're welcome to invite your audience too.
I'll put links in the description so that everybody can check it out if they want.
Yeah, and then the interesting thing about Mastodon is that one day you can have one, and Sam can have one, and Ricky can have one, and they're all, one tab of it is just all our local community, but then you can hit another tab and you can start following other people from others. So there's a lot of crossover in the communities, but they're also a little bit self-contained and most importantly, self-hosted. Mm. So, you could decide to block my whole community. That's fine. To me, that's your right. To me, that's free speech. Mm-hmm. You have the right. Because that's not you blocking me from saying anything anywhere. That's you closing your gate so I can't come in your yard and yell shit at the people at your barbecue. Right. That's great comparison. So that's what I really like about Mastodon. I'm really excited about Mastodon. I can't take credit for that. We copied that from the No Agenda guys. But it's just finally where we had the money and the means and the following to start paying for the monthly expense, because, motherfuckers are posting GIFs and videos and pictures all day. And every one of those files is a couple of megabytes, and it's got to be dealt with. It's, you can leave it for so long. Now it's too big. It's got to get dealt with. So that was a server space. That's kind of why we did the premium feed. Setting up the RSS feed wasn't that hard. I use WordPress personally. Some people hate it. WordPress, people say WordPress can censor you. WordPress can only censor you. The people that got censored on WordPress, and I'm not going to mention any names, were using WordPress.com hosting. So they were so-and-so or blah, blah, blah .wordpress.com. Once you're using their hosting, that's different. The WordPress I'm using is just a file I download, and I install it on my server, and I can now go or buy a theme from someplace and install that on my server. And you need to go back and forth and update with them and stuff like that. But I don't see how they could shut you off. I just don't see how it's possible with 100 millions of people running different downloadable. So
there was a fire in the server room the other day.
Of OVH?
No, not in ours, but no agenda guys were talking about it.
There was a fire.
There's always a way.
There was a fire at OVH in Europe.
Yeah.
But I'll get to that because we're protected against that too. So, where was I?
Just about the
WordPress, setting up the RSS feed through.
Oh yeah, so WordPress is open source, and I can just download it and from a million different places, and then it sets up, and then you customize your site through that. And then I use PowerPress, which is a plugin that I can just download. So I guess my point is, it's not a service I'm using; it's something I'm downloading. So I'm not going through them. I'm downloading it, taking it. Now it's mine. I'm installing it on my server. And then so now I've got this RSS feed built on my server that iTunes can block. Sure, they could do that. They might do that one day. And the other people could block it. But if you want to listen to it and you have that link, they can never stop you from listening to it.
Gotcha.
Which is the beauty of RSS. And that's why they can't shut us down. That's why, they can talk about doing this and that. And that's why they want to make us think that Spotify and Apple and Facebook and Twitter and all these things are the be all end alls, but they're not. They're just like these bumps in the road that we're going to get over, because they can't stop podcasting. And that's kind of what I'm encouraging now. As I spent years telling people, if they're going to start a podcast, use Libsyn, because they've been so great to us. Mm-hmm. But now my advice is, if you're not self-hosting, you need to be making a plan to self-host as soon as possible. Because
where should they host it? You said, I know a lot of people in Iceland, but I don't like giving out my. No, I'm not asking where you are. But give me a suggestion. You said the U.S. is no good. The
U.S. is no good. I like Canada. Okay. Because my guy, who knows a whole lot more about this sort of stuff than me, has convinced me that that's the place to do it. Okay. But we also run we're in the process. We've got it built right now, setting up, but we're going to run a Grimerica.me site registered through Malaysia that our buddy James is setting up to run just a backup to the backup, just because I think he's bored down in Mexico. But we love you, James, and we appreciate it. So that's because, they can always sort of get you at the register.
So there's a bunch of different countries that do.
There's a bunch of you can do it anywhere. Every country's probably got its own. I
just wondered if one was better than the other.
So if you're in a city or someplace where you can get a good enough connection, you could literally have a server in your closet that you're trying to run things off. The problem is with that is I don't know if the internet's at a place yet that when 10,000 people try to download it out of your closet, it's not going to cause a problem. Mm-hmm. That's sort of I'm playing with that right now, because what we did now is, because we don't have 10,000 people listening to our new Outlawed show yet. Maybe there's a bunch of people listening to the free feed, but we've only got, so many plus members. But what I've done now is I've built the whole Grimerica show. I've built a mirror of our exact RSS feed. So the 483 episodes we have on Libsyn, we also have self-hosted.
Great.
Which I've started rolling out first to a few hundred. I think I'm up to about 1,000 people I've got pulling off of that now. And so far, nobody's complaining about it. Because what I don't want is to pull the plug and then it's taken an hour to download, or because that's what happens. So we're experimenting with that right now. As far as where to go for servers, just kind of a couple DuckDuckGo searches, a couple searches on the internet of look for the companies that have gone to court a couple of times, maybe, or have something in their terms of service that says, like, a big one in Canada is porn. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people in Canada will have the clear-cut thing and no porn. Anything else fucking goes, no porn. And that's kind of one thing. The other thing with registrars is I think, like, we're in the process of swapping ours out because we were using GoDaddy. And that's another place that can shut you down at your URL. But now the new thing, I think, is to find a company small enough that they don't have a procedure in place to deal with it when the government calls.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually.
All they're going to do is call you and say, holy fuck, dude, the fucking government just called.
Feds are here. They don't want you talking about
you don't have the ability to deal with it in court, whereas the big companies are just going to have a fucking nope, too risky.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what our guy, George, thinks. And then, so like Graham was talking about the fire in the server room, that's how they get you. I mean, you're liable to that. How we back up against that is we have every once a week, I don't know what day it happens, but once a week, the entire server is downloaded and mirrored onto a physical drive.
Okay, cool.
Here in Alberta. So if, God forbid, our server place in Quebec burnt to the ground, then we would just have to find a new server place to upload everything to, and everything would be, we might be missing a week of chats and an episode.
What a pain in the ass.
Said, I only host about I think right now we're doing about 3 months of history, and then it gets purged just so I don't have to hold it all. I mean, I don't see a point.
That's for the chats, you mean, right? Yeah.
That's for the chats. Yeah, it is a pain, but I think it's worth it. And I mean, what my opinion on it is that I think that we got complacent, and that because here's the thing is because we're in the middle of doing this airport job here. And I've seen it happen during COVID, where this guy owns a Chachi's restaurant, and business is booming. And I've seen when he was living it, right? Chachi's is fucking packed every day. Then COVID comes along and the airport was closed to the point where he had to go and get a job first. And then a little while later, he's done. He's closed. So I kind of look at like trying to build the businesses we were trying to build, even though they weren't businesses at the time, they were hobbies. They became businesses. But I think as your hobby becomes a business, you sort of have the responsibility to pay the few $100s a month for servers and learn how your RSS feed works and learn how to set up the chat community, or at least have the people on your team that can help you with that. Because when the airport shuts down, I don't want to be stuck with my hand out. I'd rather have the fucking hot dog cart that drives it down to the mall.
Yeah,
I think the people are.
I think that's good advice for anybody. I mean, we're talking podcasting and things like that, but just anybody. I mean, we've seen how crazy things have been in the last year. And if you don't have a backup plan, or if you don't have additional revenue streams coming in or something, some passive income, or you've thought this out in advance, now you're scrambling at the same time everybody else is scrambling, and you're all coming up with the same idea at the same time. And, to think ahead and start planning as if that future is inevitable, and make yourself indestructible or uncancelable or at
least as much as you can do.
As much as you can do, given the government fuckery is at an all-time high, of course, and you never know what they're going to do. But to at least sort of think these things out. That's why I think this is an interesting conversation for people that don't even give a shit about starting their own podcast, because they're just. I mean, the idea that you have to think about this stuff. You have to think a couple steps ahead, and you have to be proactive instead of reactive. I mean, that because otherwise you wake up one day and you go, "What the fuck happened to my YouTube collection? All my work is gone." And other people were like, "We told you this was going to happen. Yeah. We backed up ours." Or like Ernie Hancock was backing up all of Corbett's stuff, and all of Josh Sigurdsson's stuff, and Luke Radowski's. I mean, he was on IPFS. He was backing it all up for years and years for these guys, and because he knew they were going to get deplatformed. He knew they were going to get kicked off. So it sucks that we have to think about it. But like you said, we got a bit complacent, and maybe we all have, like maybe it's like a good reminder to think ahead.
It's a good analogy for like where we are as a fucking culture in life, where you just sort of get out of school and you fall into that rut of finding a job, and then you go home and watch TV, and you just sort of fall into that complacent rut. And then all of a sudden the government says you can't go to work anymore. Or, I mean, it's just, for me, it's been a wake up call and just having autonomy over everything again. Like not only self-hosting your podcast, but I mean, that comes up with the premium feed of where Graham and I had to have the conversation where the future doesn't look so bright for the day job, maybe because the entire landscape of the economy is changing.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, what can we do to start slowly detaching from that? How can we detach from that? And if you're going to detach from that, you better fucking make sure it's secure. Yeah. Because I got kids. Yeah. So a YouTube can't decide when my kids eat.
Right.
I'm really glad you asked this because I saw a great video James Corbett did, speaking of him, about RSS, and he ran through it. All the ones on his site and all the ones audio and video and news. And he's got a news one specifically for tailoring your news input. Mm-hmm. So you don't get all these forced feeds that, you know, that they push on your phone or on your, you know, desktop or whatever.
Yep.
And it's great. And I think that now we're at the point now where, and Corbett's leading the way in this, but this is what I had a note to talk to you about this tonight is I think we have to start telling people and training people how to use the RSS. Like, so when people subscribe to the feed, and it's not super hard, but it's also not easy for everybody. But it took me like a half hour with my mom to get her through it, but I didn't have, it was on the phone. So,
right.
But, you know, they have to grab the link and add it in their podcast player manually, right? Add podcast manually, copy the
then you have a password and username.
And then there's a username and password that it triggers you for that. And then you get your whole premium feed. Mm-hmm. Now that, I mean, I guess that's a premium way, but there is just free RSS where you just copy it in and go.
Yeah.
Well, you still have to manually, do it, or I guess you could.
I mean, we're still in all the directories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's where, like, we're not Alex Jones. We're Alex Jones. You need the link.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But so this is why I think
so. Even though it's our own RSS, so it's still it would still be in the directory, right? So you can still search for Grimerica. It's still coming from our private feed.
Which comes to another point that I want to, before I lose this, is when it comes to your swag store. What's the link? What's the link to your swag store?
It goes to TeePublic is the company that does it.
Well, what's the link?
It's an affiliate link that's connected through my website.
So it's like macroaggressions.com/something.
Octopus of Global Control. No, it's a TeePublic link.
So what you want to do is find a service. So with WordPress, I use, and I'll give you a good example of why when I'm done this. Mm-hmm. I use a service called PrettyLink, which means whatever the fuck I'm up to, wherever I'm going, if we've got a swag shop here or a chat room here or a support page here, it's grimerica.ca/support. Or our chats have always been grimerica.ca/chats, not discord.com/Grimerica, grimerica.ca/chats, grimerica.ca/swag. Well, our chat, we left Discord. I mean, for us, we left like 3 times because in the beginning, we started the chat room years and years ago, and it was a Google Hangout. And very quickly, there was a limit of 100 people, so it filled up and they kicked us out of there. And then I think that's when we ended up on Discord. And then, but all of a sudden, you've got 400 shows in your back catalog that you've been giving out a link that people are listening to every day. So it's best if you own that link.
Right.
Because now I can go into the back end of my website and change it to so that grimerica.ca/chats now points to my Mattermost instance instead of Discord, which is one thing we had to do. Or when your fucking
swag shop
cancels you because of your vaccine shirts.
Yep.
And you have to fucking tear down shop and move across town, your grimerica.ca/swag link still works. So it gives you the just control. I can take my swag shop here, there, everywhere. I can maybe one day take it completely in-house, but all of our old links of .ca/swag still work because we own the link. I mean, that's just and so how that works with my software is I can just take any URL on the website, put it in here, and decide grimerica.ca/this redirects to that automatically.
Wow.
Gotcha.
And then you can redirect that at any time. I mean, I'm not saying TeePublic is a problem, but I advise everyone to do that because now you've got the ability to do whatever you want to do, and you're not having to tell everyone that you've got a new link to share.
Yeah. It's another thing that we have to think of. You know, it's crazy. It's getting your store banned for wrong think.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen.
We made less than $2,000 in the last year of profit out of that store, and they banned us for a couple vaccine shirts. So we moved. We left, and I'll say it, fuck Redbubble. We left, and we went to, where are we now?
I don't know.
Teespring.
We're at Grimerica.ca/swag.
That's what we are.
Can't even remember the
/swag.
People better go buy some shit now. After hearing that,
masks. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like you kind of challenge the audience to go buy some
protest masks. You know, we got protest masks. Yeah, this is bullshit mask sells pretty good. You know, if you got to wear one,
it's our best selling item of all time.
That's funny. Yeah, well, you're like the Rockefellers, you know, buying when there's blood in the streets. You're in there cleaning up. That's funny.
It's pretty sad because we don't even touch on the real. I mean, we started like the heaviest stuff we do is, I mean, a little bit of the anti-vax, you know, a little bit of anti-vax stuff, vaccines, and then COVID and the global control stuff. But I mean, we're not even getting into like a lot of pedo stuff or some of the massive censorship stuff. But I mean, but that's just as bad, I guess.
Well, I was talking
dude on YouTube today. Yeah. Remember I told you I was going to upload that doctor video to the YouTube? It got fucking nuked already. I threw it on YouTube.
Canadian doctors, video of Canadian doctors speaking out against COVID or their view on COVID. And so Darren uploads it and boom, right away, strike, you know, goes against our guidelines for COVID. So doctor, right in the title, doctors speak out.
For context, it's because we left that channel. Yeah. Because we started the Grimerica Outlawed show. The episode 2 was the Union Out of the Unwanted with Judy Mikovits and strike 1. And then episode 3 was something else, and it was strike 2. So, and then they gave us 2 warnings after that. And so we're like, okay, so then we took it all to Rockfin. This was kind of at the same time as we were moving to Rockfin.
Yeah.
So we started the new show on Rockfin, and then we also took the free streaming of that show over there. And I mean, shout out to Rockfin, it's been great. It also gives me a place when I see like that Canadian doctors video, YouTube's nuking it. Okay, well, I'll throw it on Rockfin.
I was on the phone with the VP of marketing for Rockfin yesterday. He's a cool guy, and he he was like very enthusiastic about what we're all doing out there. And he was like, if when you get a really good interview that you think would be, you know, like a good exclusive, he's like, just text me and just let me know. And I was like, fucking great. I mean, that's a sort of like content creator focus that we like. And I think that's why a lot of people are headed over to Rockfin, because they're treating us well. And to be fair, we've been treated like shit. We're like in an abusive relationship with YouTube. And somebody just being decent to us, we're like, thank you, you know, I mean, and then Rockfin on top of that, like, I was talking, I mean, we're all on the same Telegram chat. I don't know if you were reading it over the last 2 days, but Whitney Webb got her Patreon yanked, and they told her they didn't just want her to delete her vaccine stuff. They wanted her to delete her vaccine stuff that wasn't even on Patreon, that was on Unlimited Hangout, like on Rockfin.
That's what Spotify is going to start doing too.
She's like, what? And then they gave her a reason. Today she posted the reason in there. I just read it. It was hysterical. It was because her information was too correct. and they thought it was going to dissuade people from taking the vaccine because her information was too good.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's fucking preposterous.
Props for them being honest.
I mean, I guess you got to give them credit for that. But so Patreon's done.
Yeah, Patreon's always been done. I mean, we have a couple of Patreons, but we don't post anything there. We just kind of did it. Well, we made Patreons because some people will only support us as a Patreon. I mean, with the one show we do, the Grimerica show, our original show, is value for value. So the thing is, when you're running the show on the basis that it's free and just pay some money if you can, you need to make fucking sure that you have every easy available way for people to pay easily available because you're technically not selling them anything. Whereas if you're doing a premium model, you can say, hey man, it's Stripe or PayPal because they're buying something. There's a transaction here. When it's value for value, you really have to open the gamut up because people will message and say, hey, how come you don't have this, bro?
That's a great example, though. I mean, how ballsy are they getting? Where they're saying, you can't even tell us the truth. And we're not going to pretend that that's not the truth. We're not going to pretend that we don't know why you do. We're going to say, you can't tell us the truth because it's dissuading people from taking this vaccine. Well, no kidding. That's what the point is.
That being said, I mean, ultimately, Graham and I decided that if we were going to go to Rockfin, we had to start something
exclusive,
completely new for it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I wouldn't have got in bed with Rockfin if we didn't have our own platform built. So Rockfin's just kind of an add-on. It's a fun experiment, but if they got sold or if something happens or if something goes south, it's like more like one of your motors is out compared to catastrophic failure.
Right. Exactly.
I still encourage that you should your main hub should be your own. Or at least as much as it can be. It should be, I mean, you're going to be renting some server space from someone else someplace ultimately. Mm-hmm. But like I say, you can back that up with the nightly or weekly or monthly mirror of that. I mean, it's probably less than a terabyte.
Yep.
Our entire back catalog of all the audio we've ever done is about 79 gigabytes.
Okay. Wow.
That's closing in on 600 podcasts.
2 hours a podcast about?
Yeah, about average.
You could average it out at 2 hours probably. Yeah. 100 minutes for sure would be
100 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. You guys have done a lot, man. You've been talking to a lot of people. Who's the craziest person you've ever interviewed?
Charlie Robinson.
When my first interview with you, I did from the Denver airport. Remember that?
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Dude, Len Caston was in a McDonald's for the free Wi-Fi.
Oh, really? Well, I was like, I kept hearing they're paging overhead, and I was like, oh, fuck, this is going to sound so shitty. So I moved my laptop and everything while we were doing the interview into the stairwell, like the employee stairwell. So I'm sitting in there in the airport looking like a terrorist on a laptop, talking into a microphone, and I'm going, and I'm at the Denver airport, which is crazy enough. And I'm going, oh, this is just the recipe. And and they'll be like, oh, you've written this book, you conspiracy theorist. You look like you're about to blow up the airport.
Yeah, Len Caston was awesome. A fun one. I remember I was being a dick too. I was in a different place then.
Yeah.
I was making little comments. I'm loving it. I just couldn't help it. You know what? It was like the secret project of Planet Serpo or something like that.
Yeah. I remember
and it's that. like that's Graham's thing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's all just make believe.
Right. You're not into the 20 and back program and like that. Man. Super soldiers. I do. I know who Len Caston. That's funny. I've never talked to him before, but I remember that. I like that stuff though. I mean, I like that stuff as like a stoner thought experiment, like the way I like Inner Earth or what's beyond Antarctica. I
love sci-fi, but it's when you're trying to tell me it's true that
I want to know if there are a Nazi Panzer division frozen under the ice in Antarctica. Like I need to know that, but but because it just is so fucking crazy that it sounds that it's fascinating now. But
who were we just talking to? That was like a spy novel again. I mean, you get these guests once in a while. One of them for us was Alan Green. I think it's episode 207 where he goes on 2 hours. And at the end, you're just like, you're on the edge of your seat. It's just like this fucking captivating spy novel of Shakespeare's fucking fake. And it's this whole secret society thing. And the answer's hidden in this fucking fireplace in the, I can't remember where.
It's in the church. It's the altar in the church. Yeah.
It's just like, Those are my favorite when they're like, they got this spy novel, but the entire time I'm 100% with you. Like I don't like when Alan Green's talking to me, I'm with him 100%. There's no part of me that thinks it's bullshit.
But see, for me, like I've always had this, but even before the podcast, I've had this sort of philosophy that if ET is real, then anything is possible. And I mean, I saw this UFO in the 1990s and it was fucking mind blowing. And I'm not saying it's ET because it could have been some Israeli fucking secret space program thing or something, but it was a crazy object, polygonal shape, like a dodecahedron split in half, turning halves against itself and the whole thing rotating on its axis. And a bunch of us saw it at once. Like they saw it twice. I saw it once, a bunch of us on a rooftop. So let's say it's ET just for the hell of it. If ET is real and they're visiting, then anything is possible. Anything is possible. So I've gone out and fucking meditated with groups of people and we make some kind of contact. We intend for, in a loving, loving space, loving intention to make contact with ET. Maybe it's fucking demons and angels. Maybe it's Darren's just laughing over here, but it's true. This is what happens, right?
Right.
I did it in the 90s. Nothing happened in the mid 90s. Come to Calgary, we go out here and we make fucking contact with something. Something just flashing.
Define contact. Let's define contact. Dude, you're just blowing over contact.
Dude, it's a multitude of things.
Okay, well, let's explain one of them.
Low flying.
This goes like that?
No.
This is meditating on a new moon, dark sky.
Gotcha.
With loving intention, looking for ETs. And I'm not saying they're ETs,
like
but that's the
CSETI program.
Yeah, CSETI stuff.
Right.
And that's the logical thing is there's something flashing us and communicating with us. And there's low flying fucking silent craft, not airplanes, not drones. Darren's just fucking laughing. I mean,
so Midnight Mike.
To be fair, it's not that I don't believe you. It's just that I don't care. I
don't. Midnight Mike said that you can do this cool thing in Sedona where you get night vision goggles and you can watch fucking aircraft coming and going.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a highway up there.
Yeah.
Secret space program.
Yeah. I mean, how do you tell the difference? I don't know what the difference is. I know the phenomena is a multitude of things, but my point is that we're making contact with something. So anything else is possible. No, anything is possible then.
Saying Project Serpo.
Yeah, anything is possible.
Project Serpo. You think Len Kasten has the inside scoop?
I don't know about Len, but I mean, it's possible.
What if he was making it up? Like
this is my problem. This is my problem. So this is why I said that I'm 100% on Alan Green. I don't need to be 100%, Charlie.
Yeah.
If I'm 30%, I can have a good time.
Yeah.
If I'm like 0% and the whole time I'm like, come on, bro. How can you expect me to? But I mean, maybe I'm just a cynic.
So that's how you were with Len Kasten? Like,
you should hear this stuff. It is out of this world.
I've heard it. I've heard it. It is crazy.
My opinion is he's making it up to sell books, which I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say this. So in my defense, it took me 7 years to publicly say this. All right. I just left it alone for years.
Mm-hmm.
I just because what I do is I'd shut up. I'd clam up. We do one of these shows where they're talking about stuff and I just feel like, oh boy. And I just be doodling. But the Len one stuck out. I don't know why. I just thought they would.
It's such an extraordinary story. I mean, it requires some sort of evidence, But look, I like to geek out on that. That's fun. And so, but Graham, you said that you saw something that was a ship. Was it spinning or?
So it was like a loony at arm's length.
He doesn't know what a loony is,
and a 3/4 moon.
He doesn't know what a loony is.
We can figure it out.
Google it.
Figure it out.
And then it's going across the sky, so it's shining in the moonlight, and it's like an dodecahedron or an icosahedron shape. It's hard to tell because it's moving, and both halves are rotating against themselves, and then the whole thing is slowly moving on its axis as well. And it just silently goes through the sky. It's in airspace, and it silently goes through the sky. And all the people that I was on the rooftop with said, they're like, I ran over to them on the rooftop, and they're pointing up, and they're like, "Oh, we see this UFO," and they said it did this 90-degree turn. And I was looking up at the sky, and I'm like, "Please come back, please come back. I want to see you too," because I missed it the first time, and then I spotted it, and I'm like, "Is that it?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's the same thing we saw," and then just silently went across the sky.
So I have I know a guy who's a photographer, and I might have told this story in the show before, but if I have, I apologize. I know I've told it on a couple other shows, but this guy was a photographer friend, and he said, I shot some film with him, and then I needed to go pick it up when he was done. And while we were doing this, he said, "Oh, you want to hear a cool thing? I got contacted by this dude from the Air Force to go out to Area 51 and shoot some photographs for them." I was like, "Cool." And I go, "But don't they have like photography? I mean, it's the Air Force, right? Don't they have their own photographers? Like, no offense, but why do they need you?" He goes, "Oh, I was thinking the same thing." He's like, "But shit, they pay really well, and it's a couple days, and I'm kind of excited, so I'm going to go." I was like, "All right, cool." So, we both were kind of like, why the fuck would they need to outsource that, especially to Area 51? So, 2 weeks go by, and I call him back, and I say, "Hey, are my photos done?" And he's like, yeah, you can come by. Why don't you come by later today? I go, "Yeah, I'll come by." And he goes, and I said, "Oh, hey, how'd that thing at Area 51 go?" And he goes, "I can't talk about that," and just hung up the phone. And I was like, so I show up there later that day, and his wife is there, and his wife works for him, or they work together in this photography studio. And I go, "What the fuck is going on?" I called him, and he hung up on me. He's all crazy. She goes, "He's all crazy. He's super fucking paranoid. He thinks that they're watching him. He thinks that the phones are bugged. And he's out of his mind since he's been back." I was like, "Oh shit." And so then I finally see him, and I go, "What the fuck?" And he goes, "We can't talk in here." And he takes me outside, and we go around the building, and we go behind the dumpster. And he tells me that they took him to Area 51, that he had a guard with him the whole time, and he had a camera. This was 1995. So he had a camera with film. And he would shoot what he needed to shoot. And when he was done with that roll of film, he'd hand it to the guard. The guard would open the container, take the film out, load a new roll, put close the thing down, and then hand him the camera back. So he said, at no time did I ever have access to the film that I was shooting, but they needed me to shoot it. So I shot it. And I go, "Well, what'd you see?" He said, "I went into this hangar that was the biggest hangar I've ever seen in my entire life. Like you could fit hundreds of planes in there. And just it was like baked into the side of a mountain." And he said they had this thing that was the size of a Volkswagen Bug. And it was sort of elevated by like a hand device that was sort of holding it. And he said it was one of those things like you would find at a carnival or someplace, a gyroscope. You climb inside, and you kind of put your arms and in legs apart, and it spins you. And then there's another circle, and that circle spins. And then there's a third circle, and that circle spins, and you kind of go back and forth and want to throw up. That gyroscope thing, he said that's what it was, but it was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And then they wheeled it out onto the tarmac. And then the guy that was controlling it was in a scissor lift, and he had like a joystick type thing. And they pushed it out there, and he was, taking pictures of all of it. And he said it starts spinning. And now I think years after that, 1999, the movie Contact came out. If you remember how that thing was spinning and spinning and spinning, that is exactly how he described it. Wow. And he said it was spinning. It started slowly, and it was going faster and faster. He said it didn't make any noise, but you could tell and you could see it was going faster. At some point, they left they unhooked the top part of the arm and like clamped that away, and it hovered there. And then it went up in the air, and you could see the guy was controlling it. It went up in the air, and he said he could just feel that it was spinning faster and faster and faster and faster. And while they were watching, all of a sudden it just vanished. It just was not there anymore. And he said, and then the guys are going over there, and he looked, and it was like a mile away. It was like, boom, it appeared there. And he goes, And that is the moment that I thought they weren't going to let me walk out of here alive. And I was like, holy shit. Now, this guy had no reason to lie to me. He had no reason. He didn't know I was going to go get into this sort of interest or write about it, or stuff like this. So he just was a guy that was excited about it and had nobody else to tell except me. And I showed an interest in it. And he told me all the details. He said they called it the acorn. And that didn't do anything for me until about 10 or 15 years ago. I was watching like a Discovery Channel, something or other, and they were talking about the Nazi bell, the Der Glocken, and that the nickname for that was the acorn. And I was like, holy shit, that's what he saw. He saw a version of the bell.
Like 80 years later.
Yes. And they called it the acorn, like the same way they called the other one the acorn. And it did the same thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen a UFO. Wasn't as dramatic as that though.
Yeah,
I was
a lightness guy.
I was smoking a joint at the time too, so it's fluffed off.
That's okay.
But I mean, if this guy, let's just for argument's sake, he saw that and it's true. I mean, Planet Serpo doesn't seem so crazy now.
It just means if that's out there, what else? That was 1996.
Exactly my point. Exactly.
Yeah. That it's just I don't know.
Maybe I owe Len an apology. Sorry, Len. Who's the guy who called me a child?
No, he said use your adult brain.
Right.
Yeah, that was the flat Earth guy.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the only fight I've ever gotten in on the podcast.
Was with who?
The flat Earth guy.
The flat Earth guy. I forget his name. David Weiss. David Weiss. And I publicly apologized for losing my temper. But he started telling me to use my
Darren got
adult.
so triggered when he said, "Well, just use your adult brain," and Darren just.
He's like,
David texts me. He's bought my books. I've been on his podcast. I like David a lot, actually. That would make me super uncomfortable to see you guys fighting.
he's like, well, how come when I can't remember if it was a plane or what it was. He's like, how come basically his thing was, how come when you jump, the earth doesn't spin underneath you? And I'm like, well, because it's all spinning, man. And he's like, come on, bro, use your adult brain. And I'm just like, oh my God. I can't remember what I said after that. I lost my temper. So it was my finest out.
So check this out. He told me a funny story. He and Jaron from Jaronism, do a show together, and he wanted to know if I would come on and be the skeptic, be the guy that like has questions. And I like David, and I'd never met Jaron before, but I got on this call with them, and I like them both, and they're super nice. And I wasn't like disrespectful or, like some people can be really shitty to them. And so I didn't do any of that, but I had a list of questions, and we went through, it was like a 2-hour interview, and it was a whole lot of fun, and it made me think like, wow, I don't know, I forgot all this geometry. They're like, well, the angle here and this, and this should drop by this many degrees. I was like, man, if you say so. Like, it just occurred to me how much I've forgotten of all of that stuff. But the funny part is that he told me like a year after we did that interview, he goes, dude, guess what? And I was like, he said, I went to the Flat Earth Convention. There's the Flat Earth Convention.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. I went to the Flat Earth Convention, and our podcast, that episode of our podcast with you in it, won an award for best interview. So, dude, I'm like a flat. I was like, I guess they liked that I didn't shit all over them.
Yeah, you're using your adult brain. You're a skeptic with the adult brain.
I was respectful, and I had like real questions, and see, the thing is though, that David knows that I am so distrustful of NASA, and so I'm already, you have to, that's the first step in getting to the flat Earth side, is you have to be extremely distrustful of NASA. And I am that in a huge way. I think they're a bunch of phonies, but that doesn't mean that I'm a flat earther. But I do like, I do like, so like Graham Hancock's book, Fingerprints of the Gods, mentioned this Piri Reis map from 1505 that showed Antarctica without ice, And so I'm thinking, I've seen these other maps, these flat earth maps, or these maps that show the earth kind of like as a dish with additional rings outside of that and everything. And I'm going, all right, well, that's obviously crazy. But then you think about the Piri-Reis map that Graham Hancock wrote about and how it should it should actually be covered with ice. He should not know exactly where this coastline is. But when they did it when they scanned it, with the satellites and mapped it to see where the ice ends and where the land actually begins, it matched the map. And so it's like, how was Antarctica free of ice 500 years ago? How the fuck would this guy know? How would he be that accurate with the edges of the land mass? Not talking about the ice, but the land. How would he do that? And so that trips me out.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's from copying old maps, because Antarctica wasn't always full of ice.
Mm.
I mean, that's what I think they're really trying to hide from us. Is that not that I think the whole flat earth thing is a scam. Is a disinformation,
psyop.
It's not a distraction.
A limited hangout, get you going.
Well, it's more of a distraction to get you worried about that instead of worrying about the fact that it's all fucking fake. All the shit they're telling you is bullshit. Like news is fake, the history is fake. It's all fucking fake.
Yeah.
Probably our history, what civilizations existed right before us or a couple thousand years ago before that. I mean, I really think it's more about that than being flat. I mean, maybe it is flat. I think it's weird that everything else that you can see is round and spinning, but
except for the moon.
Except for the moon.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Yeah,
but all the planets seem to be. And not only that, all the other ancient cultures seem to think we're around and agree with that. So tomorrow, and to be honest, I trust them more than anybody.
I've read the book "Who Built the Moon" by Alan Bean or Alan Butler, and that's a trippy book, man, because it says, like, there's a line in there that says that, like, statistically speaking, the moon should not exist.
Oh no, yeah, it shouldn't.
And
such a weird anomalies with the moon too, and the moon and the sun specifically.
And I'm wearing my Operation Paperclip shirt, not knowing that we were going to get on the topic of NASA, and reminding people that the Nazis were funneled into NASA, and it was started by occultist maniacs and guys trying to blow themselves up with rockets. The JPL crew. And they have been lying to the general public from day one about just about everything they're doing. I definitely think NASA's full of shit, and I definitely think that Lockheed Martin Skunk Works is building ships that would basically be described as spaceships, right? TR-3Bs and shit like that. I mean, those are real. Those Cliff High said he's filmed them.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's coming on Out Loud soon.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Cliff. He's getting into. I keep asking him to come on the show, and I get an email back from him in 30 seconds saying, "Can't do it, too busy." Every time, but he's doing his
just the right time. Yeah, and we were going to do him a couple weeks ago, but he's going through some stuff right now that makes it tough. So
yeah, I know. He's doing a really interesting series on a year of woo, is what he's calling it, and it's hard to describe, but it's sort of like like where things are headed in the future, where the normies can't really get a grip on it. It's a fascinating series that he's doing there. I would encourage people to check it out if they can.
2020 seems to have been like a really good year for a lot of the people I know that are paying attention.
Yeah.
Like
Bitcoin people.
Well, not just Bitcoin people, just like people with the right attitude and just the right sort of outlook. just a lot of people I know, when I talk to them, they're like, well, how was your last year? And they're like, well, the world's kind of burning down. Personally, I'm doing more of this, more of that. Well, I never felt better.
Yeah.
And I hear that over and over and over again, which I guess a little bit of hopeful.
Give it a few years before we get chased down with the jab. That'll change.
Yeah, well, just be careful because you manifest your future. So I'll be on the beach while you're getting chased down in some totalitarian hellhole. Hopefully Charlie's with me.
Yeah, I'm getting the fuck out of here when I can. Berwick is, obviously in Acapulco. He's I think he's got a good outlook on it. He's from Edmonton. So he just said, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. And went down there and never left. And I guess I can't really blame him. Who would have thought that Mexico would be more welcoming of freedom and things like that than America? America has always had this big freedom, like this big ad campaign about how free we are. And we would always point the finger at Mexico and laugh at them and go, those poor bastards. Dude, Mexico is doing things so much better than we are. And America is collapsing in its own ignorance, and the sheeple people are just standing around applauding like a bunch of trained seals. It's
that's the problem.
Embarrassing.
That giant, super powerful state to help maintain all that freedom. I'm not saying you needed it or that's what it was actually for, but then it started turning around, and now this is like my argument about Canada, because 2 years ago I was looking at spots in the States stand up. And then now in 2021, I'm like, fuck that. I might consider moving to Texas maybe one day, but I don't even know about that, because when I look at the Canadian Army being less than 50,000 all in with reservists and everything, I'm like, I like the idea of them trying to chase me down to give me a jab than a fucking country where every single local police station has more shit than my military.
Yeah, it's true, man.
Because I think in Canada, if I can get a few hours away from a major city, good luck. Good luck. Honestly, in small town Alberta, you're 20 years away from anything like that. And
in the United States, through the 1033 program, they've imported over $12 billion worth of military-grade weapons from the military into the police force for free, just the cost of shipping and handling. And it works out to, it's like 80,000 assault rifles and like 2,100 grenade launchers. And this is for local cops. So they're militarizing our police. Not to mention police are being trained to be super aggressive on top of that. So now they're trained to be animals. They dress them like the military. They give them military gear and then act surprised when they go out there and start shooting people. What do you think was going to happen?
Yeah, that's another sort of factor, is that, I don't like the fact that our police's force is so nationalized. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I don't like that aspect of it. But again, there's still only there's less than 20,000 of them coast to coast. It's a giant fucking landmass. They've all got their own families to take care of. I'm not worried about it. The RCMP here have basically said, we're not getting involved in your bullshit. Now, the city police, the Calgary police, have got themselves in a couple of instances, tasing people playing hockey and stuff like that. And I'm sure
we saw that.
I'm sure there's a few instances where the RCMP have been on a line, but by and large, at least in our town and in Alberta, they've just said, we're not getting involved in this bullshit. To the point that in Ontario, they've even gone as far as saying, we're not arresting people at the airport.
Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about. The like travelers quarantined in hotels. We saw footage of that where the people weren't getting fed and the supply chain was breaking down, and the people are in the lobby screaming at the hotel manager. I watched the video of it. This poor bastard's just taking it. But
just walk out.
What the fuck is going on there? Like, what kind of authoritarian bullshit is that?
You know what makes me wonder is around Calgary, we were actually questioning it ourselves a couple of years ago. why are all these hotels getting built? There's like 10, 15 little hotels getting built around the Calgary airport. Massive expansion. Calgary is now one of the 4 airports that you have to go through for international travel to end up in these quarantines. And it does sort of smack to me like this is part of the plan. Like, you know,
they're still empty though.
I know they've always been empty. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But you know, this is the type of thing where you hear it in the media and you're like, that can't be true. And then you hear it out of Trudeau's mouth and you're like, he's actually saying what they're saying he's saying, you know, that
but at the end of the day,
you can get through no problem.
It's as real as you want it to be.
Yeah.
On all fronts, whether it's the mask or the not the mask
anymore. Really.
Or the not having people have the mask has gotten weird because people have made it weird.
Yeah.
The government still can't do nothing to me. It's now businesses and people that have scared people have gone above and beyond. But as far as the government, the mask is bullshit and they know it. They can't charge me with it. And if they do, it gets thrown out of court. If I have people at my house, even though they say I can't, and they try and charge me, it's going to get thrown out of court. If I don't listen to them at the airport and walk out of there, or if I leave the hotel, they tell me I have to go to the hotel, and I'm like, okay, I'll take the night. Now you wake up in the morning, and I'm going fucking home. They're not going to shoot me. I hope they don't. But they're going to give me a ticket. And what have we found in Canada? Every single ticket that gets fought gets thrown out. The judges aren't playing ball. Alberta judges especially, but judges coast to coast. Nope.
Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, said he's throwing all those fines out. He said, we're not doing that.
That's what's happening here, to the point now that there was a barbershop or a salon and a restaurant that had pushed the boundaries so much that AHS had tried to make AHS is our Alberta Health Service.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to make an example out of them and charged them with all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. So in the last 2 weeks, both cases, now AHS has come out and dropped all charges and said, we're also going to pay any legal fees you've accrued up to this point.
Wow.
So I think as far as I'm concerned, the precedent is set from coast to coast that, I mean, we're having a barbecue tomorrow. We're having a big barbecue tomorrow. And if the cops show up here, great. I'll be super nice to them and I'll take my ticket and I'll say, I'll see you in court on your day off. But it won't even get that far. It won't even get that far because the judges know it's bullshit. I mean, it's from the legal standpoint, it's really coming unraveled on them. And I think now what they're trying to do is avoid court. They don't want our health representatives on the court. And I mean, hopefully in Canada, we've got some real powerful, or not powerful, but some real great people that are taking them to task. I mean, the Justice Center here in Calgary has sued, I think, 5 or 6 different provinces now. And I mean, it's going to take...
Corbett just had Carpe on that.
It's going to take years and years and years for it to pan out. But I think now they're backpedaling hard because I think they realize that people are, my personal opinion is that there's going to be lawsuits for the next decade over.
I hope so, but I feel like I've got the opposite take where the messaging is so strong still with everybody, the public, the masks, the vaccines. That's all they talk about in the health, like in the updates and all that is vaccine. And
it's a hell of a sales pitch.
It's just marketing though. That's like, I think it's a sales pitch because I mean, the interesting thing is, I mean, like they said on No Agenda, this thing's not even fucking approved yet.
I know, but
the life insurance companies in Canada, I actually just had a life insurance company call the other day and the COVID things comes up and the vaccine comes up. And I've heard from a couple fronts now that if you get killed from the COVID vaccine, your life insurance is null and void because it's not fucking approved.
Right.
It's got emergency authorization in Canada that whatever ours is called, it's not officially approved. It's just crammed through. And it's in the US, you guys did emergency authorization or whatever. And I can't see them being able to limit any travel or I don't think
but
the
this
airlines
is the weird part. I mean, how can they hold together this narrative?
They just say that because then people just line up.
It's coming unglued. They can't stop it.
Get the shot. Did you see the sign in Chestermere here now? They started taking vaccine people, 75 and up. You can make an appointment.
I wouldn't be so bad if people would just agree that there's a risk. But that's the main thing is like even friends of mine that are pro-vax and they've had their vaccine, that's fine if you want to do it. But if you would just admit there's a risk and people should have to be the informed consent and be able to do that, fine. That's a different argument. That's a philosophical argument where you're saying you're going to have to take this risk for the good of humanity. Well, that's a different argument than go ahead and take it because it's safe, because it's not safe.
No, it's not. It's there. And it's every one of those companies are convicted felons.
Yeah.
They've been convicted in court of felonies, including faking tests, price fixing, bribing doctors, perjury, you name it. They're gangster. It's a gangster cartel, and
great marketing campaign.
And people, have been trained to think that there's only one solution to their problem. Wait till the vaccine comes out and then everything will be fine. But look, we're in our category, according to the CDC, for guys are in our age range and health status, we're at 99.97% survivability. So if the vaccine does everything it's supposed to do and it works absolutely perfectly, I can only raise my chances of living by 0.03%. All of that you trade for a gamble on an experimental vaccine that hasn't even been cleared by the FDA. It hasn't cleared the stage 3 human trials. That is just dumb.
I know, but that's where they get the 95% effectiveness. It's because
I think it's calculation. I think they know it's going to fall apart on them, and they're trying to sell as many as they can. I mean, but they should be paid for already, so it shouldn't matter.
I don't see where you think that their intention is just money and power and all that. I mean, this has been going on this has been planned for a while. I mean, there is no getting out of this.
I agree to disagree. Yeah.
I think
I'm convinced that I'll die without a COVID shot.
Yeah. I was watching the doctors, that doctor from, I don't know, Europe somewhere, the vaccine guy too. And then these doctors getting censored. Like, to me, that just shows that they know they know the science. Like this guy knows the science, and they know the science about the masks, and they know the science about the effectiveness of the vaccine. The 95% is just fucking from 0.044 to 0.88%. That's all it does is change your fucking chances from that. It's all, if they know all this stuff, then they're intentionally doing this. Yeah. They're intentionally harming people. So it's not just for sales. This is this is a massive campaign. That's where I'm starting to end up.
I'm in two overlapping, like a Venn diagram. One of them is making a ton of profits, and the other one is a depopulation agenda or a sterilization campaign. I mean, those Deagle numbers are starting to stand out a little bit more to me now. The depopulation showing us going from 340 million in America down to 99 million by 2025. Well, how the fuck would you get that many people removed from the country? You could you send them to some other country, or you could kill them. If their numbers are correct, and I hope they are not, then maybe what we're seeing is the lead up to what happens by 2025. I mean, it sounds insane. I recognize that because people aren't, this Deagle's not supposed to be putting stuff like that out in the public domain, but being a military contractor and having access to some pretty sensitive information, they can rightly understand why that would scare the shit out of people to see that. And yet nobody's denied it either. So,
yeah,
that's why I'm staying in Canada.
Yeah. Well, your country is getting depopulated too, according to them.
Bring it on. I mean, like I say, I just, if it's the shot, then I'm already not getting the shot. So
the only thing that can stop it is doctors and scientists, more and more of them coming out, and the healthcare people that are getting in, that are seeing injuries and seeing deaths. And that can start, they could have overplayed the hand, and they start talking, and it just starts pushing back so hard that the programming falls apart because they're seeing too many injuries and too many deaths. That's the only thing we can kind of hope for, I think.
I know. And it's the worst thing in the world to hope for.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
States only had 1,000.
And I'm not hoping for the deaths. I'm hoping of the awareness of
course. Yeah. That's what I mean. But you know that the awareness is going to come from more and more people dying from it, more and more people being injured, more and more people trying to give any other answer than the vaccine did it. At some point that the lies catch up to them and the narrative falls apart, and then everyone and if that happens, and I hope that it does, if that happens, it's going to have a whipsaw effect, and it's going to send people into a real pain. Say, if you lied to us about COVID, what else did you lie to us about? Yeah. And then they're going to find then they're going to find what happened with the other vaccines. And then they're going to be really pissed. Then so if they overplay their hand on this and they fuck up and don't get this mandatory and all of us injected with this thing, it has the ability to go the exact opposite direction and destroy the medical cartel.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you 100%. That's what we have to hope for. Yeah.
I'm just hoping for my little bit of land down by the river, man. You guys are overthinking
it. Oh, you guys are the best. That's Grimerica, everybody. Go subscribe to their RSS feed now that you know how to do it, and now that you know what an RSS feed is. And I will put all of their links in the description. Any interviews coming up that you want to promote in advance?
We got a couple of Ikes next month. We're starting to go with David Ike on the 1st, and then Gareth Ike. Gareth?
Yep.
Gareth Ike on the 2nd. Good Friday.
Yep.
And then we're taking a week off to, I guess, illegally travel internationally.
That sounds like a plan.
And I'm not getting I'm going to get tested in the States, so they'll let me on the plane. But when I land in Canada, I'm not getting tested.
And I'll have to take the antibody test then, because I don't want to take that nose thing.
What's the antibody test?
I think there's a different option in the States. You don't have to take the jab.
Oh, you can do all kinds. I don't know.
It's not nose jab anymore.
Oh, isn't it?
No, they walked away from that a while back. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, they put implanting too much microdust in people's.
Yeah, they got all the people implanted. They needed implanted.
So yeah, I mean, we got two interviews a week going strong. So lots of shows, one of each coming out every week. So.
Yeah. Well, you guys are the best, and we always have a good time when we get together. So check their show out, everybody. And if you like this episode, and how could you not, because these guys are the best, please share it, since the algorithms hate us and will probably flag anything with Grimerica's name in it. So thanks, everybody. Take care.